This video is based on William Shawcross's book, The Shah's Last Ride. They called it a country on the edge, a land of ancient empires and modern contradictions, where marble palaces and oil rigs stood beside villages left behind by progress. By the late 1970s, Iran felt less like a single story than 1,000 stories colliding. The Shah's dazzling pageants of imperial pride, clerics preaching resistance in quiet seminaries, foreign advisors in gated compounds, and ordinary people carrying burdens the state had failed to lift. The spectacle began years earlier. In 1971, the Shah staged a ceremony at Persepolis, billing Iran as the crossroads of civilization. Cavalry and chariots rode past columns that had survived Achaemenid suns. Musicians in modern jets shared the sky. It was meant to fuse the glory of Cyrus and Darius with the Shah's vision of a modern, powerful Iran. Instead, for many, it became a symbol of distance, the monarch as a man who wore history like armor, removed from the lives of most Iranians. Reza Shah's earlier drive to secularize and centralize had reshaped Iran's institutions. He admired Ataturk and banned the chador from public life. He modernized the state but did so with an iron hand. His son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, amplified the project with glitter and force. The White Revolution promised forests nationalized for reform, industries sold to fund agriculture, literacy campaigns, and limited worker profit sharing. Yet land reform remained timid, rural productivity stagnated, and industrial growth did not create a broad domestic market. Modernization was real, but its fruits were unevenly distributed, and resentment grew in the shadows of progress. Foreign threads ran through Iran's modern tapestry. 19th-century rivalries between Britain and Russia had long marked the map. 20th-century interventions hardened nationalist memories. During the Cold War, practical ties with Israel and deep relations with the United States brought weapons, expertise, and advisors, and the haunting sense among many Iranians that their fate was shaped by others. The security apparatus at the center of that foreign-backed order was SAVAK, formed with help from Israeli intelligence and the CIA in the 1950s. SAVAK's methods and reach made it the regime's most hated instrument. Its name became shorthand for fear. Fear and suspicion suffused the court as well. By the early 1970s, the Shah's world had narrowed to courtiers and sycophants. A mid-1970s CIA report described the royal household as a place of indulgence and influence peddling, a gilded circle increasingly detached from the streets where ordinary Iranians lived. The Shah, for his part, lived under a canopy of doubt, convinced at times that foreign powers or rival services sought to betray him. Royals whispered of conspiracies, the CIA, the British, even the KGB. Rumors hardened into paranoia. Into that brittle order stepped voices who would not be silenced. In the seminaries of Qom, Ayatollah Khomeini taught that Islam demanded political engagement. He called the Shah a tool of foreign powers and denounced the White Revolution as an assault on the clergy and the soul of Iran. Arrested and exiled in the 1960s, Khomeini turned exile into a pulpit. His simple, uncompromising language found listeners among bazaar merchants, students, and the devout poor. The ulama and other critics tapped into grievances that modernization had left unresolved: economic dislocation, cultural alienation, and a sense that the country's dignity had been compromised. Culture itself became a battleground. At the Shiraz festival, a scandal, a foreign troupe accused of cruelty and indecency, inflamed conservative hearts. The Queen's patronage of such events only widened the gap between the palace and those who saw such spectacles as moral insult. In another corner, portraits in glossy courts. Cecil Beaton's paintings of princesses and Rockefeller's dinners with the Shah broadcast a prosperity that many could not taste. Violence finally pushed the brittle toward rupture. In August 1978, a fire at a cinema in Abadan killed some 400 people. Reports said exits had been locked from outside. The government blamed Islamist saboteurs. Opposition forces pointed to SAVAK. Most observers believed the latter. Weeks later, in early September, troops fired on protesters in Jaleh Square in southern Tehran. Bodies piled in the streets. Hundreds were dead or wounded. Outrage exploded. What had been simmering boiled over. The monarchy's claim to legitimacy, already frayed, snapped. In Washington, officials watched nervously. Journalist David Blumenthal told National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, "You've got a zombie out there in Iran." a blunt image for a regime that appeared alive only by habit. President Carter, in his diary, worried aloud that Khomeini could not be controlled by Western methods and that sheltering the ailing Shah in the United States would harm both nations. Decades of alliances and favors, banks like Chase Manhattan underwriting Iranian projects, friendships between David Rockefeller and the Shah, Project Eagle to help the deposed monarch after exile, now tangled into a perilous knot. On January 16, 1979, the palace gates closed behind Mohammad Reza Pahlavi and Empress Farah as they left Niavaran Palace for what would be their last departure. The Shah paused in Aswan at Anwar Sadat's invitation, left his powers to Prime Minister Shapur Bakhtiar, a man he distrusted, and, for the first time in centuries of Pahlavi rule, direct royal authority ended. The streets that had once been wary now pulsed with the energy of change. The revolution's aftermath was personal and tragic for many who had served the old order. Amir Abbas Hoveyda, a long-serving prime minister, was executed. Others fled. Princess Ashraf entrusted her New York affairs to a PR man, Robert Armau, who became the family's spokesman in exile, a bridge to American power that would prompt inquiries about foreign agent registration. The Shah found refuge briefly in the Bahamas, Panama, Egypt, and finally a contentious stay in the United States that helped spark the 444-day hostage crisis. What toppled the Pahlavi dynasty was not a single fault, but a long accumulation. The mismatch between ostentation and need, the authoritarian closure of political life, the creation of a security state with foreign assistance, and modernization that failed to heal social wounds, clerical legitimacy, national resentment against foreign presence, and economic grievances converged into a popular force that neither guns nor oil nor grand pageants could hold back. Iran emerged from that winter of 1978 to 79 transformed. The Shah's departure closed an era of monarchic flamboyance and foreign entanglement. In its place rose a revolution rooted in religion and nationalism, reshaping the region and challenging the assumptions of distant powers. The story of modern Iran is, above all, a tale of contradictions, ancient pride and modern insecurity, rapid change and deep dispossession, and how those contradictions finally detonated into history.